So today's review is going to be a 2000 Cobra R. Shout out to my buddy Andrew Pappas, which I'll tag him in his Instagram. Make sure you check him out. He sells high-end cars, rare cars, from 918 Spiders to even LaFerraris, Aventadors, all the way to the new G-Wagons, everything. He's letting me review his personal car, which is a super rare, totally different type of review too. 2000 Mustang Cobra R. Now, a little bit about this car. 385 horsepower, 385 torque. This thing was like the holy mecca when it came out for Ford, especially in Ford Performance and the partnership that they did with Ford and Ford Performance, a partnership because they're two different divisions. Has Brembo brakes from the factory, 4-piston up front, smaller little 2 pistons in the back. Not only does it have Brembo brakes from the factory, it has McPherson struts and a Bilstein suspension system, all from the factory. The splitter is one that Andrew put on. To my knowledge, I'm not sure if it's factory or not. I think it's aftermarket. That's the only thing I wasn't sure about. I'll confirm with him later and put it in the description. So, this thing, 385 horsepower. To put into a little explanation of this monster, and it's super, super low miles. I checked, it had 33, let's see, 33, oh my God, that's not even correct. It's 3,382 miles, super low miles, big ass 5.4 liter V8. And to put it into perspective of this car, when other cars were coming out in the year 2000, not only when other cars were coming out in the year 2000, some of the only cars that were faster than this were a Diablo, which ran it faster, 0 to 60, had more horsepower, which you can look up those numbers yourself online. I don't know, I'm off the top of my head. I just know that the Diablo was faster, the 360 Medina, and then there was another supercar that came out that year. And then this was about 4th or 5th on that list. 5.4 liters, just massive, 32 valve V8. This is a true muscle car. And obviously with the true muscle car, you have to drop the hood on these things. That's just the American way. So we'll go for a little drive. I don't want to go too crazy. You know, it is a Mustang at the end of the day. It is a fucking monster. These are crazy cars. The side exhaust system's pretty badass from the factory like that. And the SVT special wheels with the wing, the beveled hood, or this hood scoop in a way, slightly like beveled hood up, giving it this crazy aggressive look. It's crazy because I used to drive this car in Gran Turismo when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite cars to drive. So when he posted it on his story about how he has it, I was like, you gotta let me review this thing. Such low miles too, so mint. So yeah, let's take it for a drive. Don't want to go too nuts. Like I said, you know, these cars are pretty wild, or they can get wild. You've seen videos. So welcome. So first things first, I'm gonna let this thing warm up a little bit. This isn't like a regular, this isn't like a regular Mustang. This is a very special type of Mustang. And not only is it a very special type of Mustang, it's very special because it is a true race car from Ford Performance. It also does not have an AC or a radio. So this thing is fully deleted from the factory. Now, a little bit more about the car is, this is the type of car where, almost killed it. This is the type of car where it's not very forgiving. It's not like some of these newer cars where, the car is better than the actual driver himself or herself. And since the car is better than the driver, it kind of makes up for that. The car is only as good as the driver. And if the driver's not good, well, this car is not forgiving whatsoever. This car is not forgiving at all. Pull out into some traffic here. And not only is this car not forgiving at all, this is one of those cars that, it's not your run-of-the-mill type of Mustang. When somebody looks at this thing and they're like, oh, it's a Mustang, and that's kind of it. That's their response. No, it's not just any regular Mustang. It's a Mustang Cobra R. This thing is a true monster from the factory. And the way that they set this thing up to be a track monster is really where Ford Performance is really trying to aim towards. The car makes a 385 horsepower at a higher RPM too, around 6,000. It makes the torque very low, also 385 torque at around 4,200 RPM, according to my research. 0 to 60 is putting this car around, you know, from Motor Trend days, it's putting this car around 4.4, which is pretty impressive. Jeez, that low end torque is wild. You just feel it there. And that's the thing about muscle cars, that, you know, muscle cars just have a different type of roar to them. It's like, it's the brute kind of power where, let's feel it. It's definitely a brute kind of power. You can hear that intake just sucking in air. The brakes are crazy good too. Like, this car feels super nimble for being a Mustang. Like, granted, I haven't taken it around any corners yet, but it doesn't feel like a heavy boat kind of Mustang. It is a lighter version of a Mustang. It is more track oriented. So it's a little bit different than how, you know, you would normally picture a Mustang to be, so to speak. All right, let's get into the traffic here. Get on a little bit of a main road. Tons of crazy visibility though. Wow, the hood scoop on this thing is wild though. It literally like comes over the driver's face. How big that hood is. It's so interesting how the exhaust is on the side of you, on the side of the car, you know, like similar like a Viper or something like that. And it's just funny because you can hear the exhaust noise by your ear as opposed to behind you, which is like a little ironic. Just not something that you picture or feel, you know, in a regular kind of driving car. I'm surprised it doesn't spin. I'm just really surprised it puts the power down well. Looking forward to getting into some open road here in a second. Wow, the gearing is so short. It's like total race car gearing. It's so funny. I wonder what specs the rear differential is on this thing in terms of like what the final drive is. It's so funny because it's so the gearing is so short. Alright, let's see what we got here. I'm gonna look out for these police officers in Mexico. Wow, it's crazy. The fourth gear is super long, but all the other gears are really short. It is a 6-speed manual transmission. Let's see. Oh my god. Big gets it though. That was a quick 40 to like 80 pull there. Feels great. It just screams though. Really does scream. It's a very comfortable car too. It's not like it's super comfy, and it's badass because from the factory these things have Recaro bucket seats. Like, it's just crazy. From the factory they have Recaro bucket seats, and it's not something that really just comes. Kind of reminds me of the old 2000, 2001 Integra Type Rs where they came with factory Recaro bucket seats in the US and over in Japan and some of those other Japanese car makers like Nissan Skyline and stuff like that. This is like the very similar seat. Like, if you look up the seats to those other cars, they look exactly like these seats. So it kind of brings back old Japanese car heritage in a weird way. I know it's two totally opposite sides of the world, but in a weird way it reminds me of that. Everything's so minimalistic too. Power windows, power door locks, vented for your vent, heat, and cold outside air, since it has no AC, of course, like I mentioned, and that's literally it. And the rear defroster button. That is literally all that is here on the dash, and a cigarette lighter. Turn around up here. All right, let's feel it out. No traffic. A little turnaround up here. Car rides really good. The clutch is pretty soft. It's not heavy. It's not, I mean, it's on the softer side, but you know, granted, it's an older car, probably bleeded, changed the way the clutch feels a little bit. So let's see how this thing feels. We're good. Feels so good. It feels so good. What a monster. What a little monster. And you know, this thing has 3,386 miles on it, and it drives so solid. Obviously, it's still kind of like a brand new car. I am feeling the no AC though right now. It's a little humid out here today. I feel by the beach. But drivability is really good. The fourth gear is so low. I haven't even gotten it into fifth or sixth. So, for a rare classic Mustang, you know, giving on what the market is doing for these things, it's kind of all over the place because they're just one of 300. You know, it's hard to find one this clean. And in this example, I feel like this is stupid clean. This is literally like brand new car clean. And it's just not something that you're gonna see on the road either. This is a very special kind of buyer for this kind of car. It's not some run-of-the-mill guy that just has no idea what's going on with Mustangs or has no idea what's going on with cars in general. It's funny though, everything's so analog, I love it. Like I go to click the turn signal once to tap it and it doesn't even go off. I'm like, what's going on? Back in the day, you couldn't tap the turn signal for it to blink 3 times. You'd have to actually put this turn signal all the way down. It's just funny, I miss old analog stuff like this sometimes where it is true analog. There's no ABS on this thing. Actually, there's ABS, but there's definitely no traction control. I don't even think there's ABS on this thing. I didn't read online anything about ABS, but definitely no traction control. But this thing puts down the power so well. Like you saw that there, that was first gear, second gear, third gear, all flat out, and the power just puts down smoothly. I mean, you know, for what this car was in the year 2000, this thing was really ahead of its time. And not only was it ahead of its time for what it is, it was just kind of like this, it was a track monster. It wasn't necessarily what Ford was really doing at that time there when they introduced this car, the Cobra R. This truly is like one of those track machines, and it even feels like going around this corner, it's so planted, it's crazy. There's no roll. The steering feels light and nimble. I'm gonna check the weight on this thing and see what the weight is when I get out after this drive. I'd really love to see what the just total, you know, vehicle weight is on this thing. I'm guessing it's somewhere around 3,500 pounds. That's kind of my guess. So I just checked a little bit ago when I was stopped. The weight of this car is 3,560. 3,560. I was pretty damn close to saying 3,500 pounds. So the weight of this car is 3,560. It feels really good though. It feels very good for a 3,500 pound car. That's not very heavy. It's not very light. It kind of sits in that sports car realm where a lot of these, you know, sports cars, these newer sports cars sit around the 3,000 to 3,300 mark. But, you know, for what Ford was doing back then, it's truly like ahead of its time, like I mentioned earlier. Like listen to this thing. Nothing like classic V8. Stiff suspension too, because that back wheel got off the ground when I was trying to get to my spot. I'm going to show you guys the interior before I take it back over to my buddy. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, the Recaro bucket seats, super nice. It has a rear seat delete. This is all factory, so no back seats, just you and the passenger. Badass fixed wing that we saw earlier. This thing is a pure monster though. Like, I'm just gonna pop the hood again just to take a look at how big this intake is. Like, look how massive that intake is right there. It's huge. And this is a naturally aspirated V8. This isn't supercharged like a GT500 or anything. This is naturally aspirated, true performance, Ford performance V8. 5.4 liter too. It's not a small 5 liter. Like, look how big this thing is. Like, has like no clearance on each side of the valve covers here. It's just a monster on how this thing is stuffed in there. But balance wise, it feels very good. Gotta get used to this muscle car close. Well, thanks Andrew for letting me review it, doing a quick drive on it. We'll go back to his place right now, check out some of the cars he has. He has an M3, new M3 that he just got in manual, which is sick. I can't wait to check that out. A lot of people are the front grille, this and that, but he's got a couple other badass cars like his K5 Blazer, so we'll drive over there and check it out. Look at his, also Andrew has his mystic blue Cobra here. Look how crazy that color is next to the iconic look at that factory gas tank. Crazy. One takeaway from this car too is I'm surprised how well it puts the power down, as you could even see in the video, on Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tires. They're not like, and it's not sitting on a Cup 2 or anything like that. Car even has factory, you can see it there, it even has factory brake coolers. That's crazy. In 2000 they were doing factory brake coolers down there. Andrew's new M3.
Ethan's here, your speaker actually going quite low. Oh, what's up, Brian? Yeah, I missed you too, buddy. You guys used to go to some nice lunch dates together, huh? Oh, yeah.
For sale as well.